Hello, and thank you for joining us on our weekly broadcast on Facebook. We have been talking about breaking the cycle of abuse, and today we are deviating a bit from breaking the cycle of sexual abuse to domestic abuse. And the question that I have been asking is, why do people stay in abusive relationship? Now, when I talk about abusive relationship, I'm not talking about just domestic violence. I'm talking about emotional abuse, mental abuse, and verbal abuse. Now, the fact that domestic violence is physical doesn't mean it's worse than the others. Now, if your spouse is verbally and emotionally abusing you, is as bad as being physically abused. Now, for some people who get emotionally abused and verbally abused, their self-esteem gets damaged. There have been cases where people have been emotionally abused and it just damages their mental health, and then they begin to behave very irrational. So it's not like one abuse is different, is less hurting than the other. Whatever form of abuse that you may be experiencing is still not good for you. The truth is, where there is no abuse, you are likely going to function better than where you have abused. Now, but what we are talking about today is a situation where your partner is maybe physically abusing you. The truth is, if you're listening to me and you have never been abused, you are not likely going to be able to understand the actions and the reactions of people in abusive situation. Now, one of the things people who haven't experienced abuse do is they become judgmental. Now, when they see people who have been abused, the first thing they want to say is, why are you staying there? What's forcing you to stay there? But the truth is that except you have been in that situation, you cannot really tell what your own action and reaction would be, or except you have been close, maybe a family member who's been physically abused. You may not be able to understand the reaction and the action of people that are in abusive situation. I will tell you from experience of some people that I have counseled, what they have told me and the reasons that they stay in abusive relationship. Now, it's easy to just say, how can you have been so dull in taking that kind of decision? But you should never judge anybody in abusive relationship, because taking a decision to walk away from someone they have been with, someone they believe love them, someone who they believe love, it's not an easy decision. Now, let me correct something here. Most people think that it's only the wives, the women, who get abused in relationship. That's not true. There are also women who beat their husband. That's right. There are women who also, in quote, discipline their husband. Not only their mouth they use in discipline, being physical, they can actually beat up their husband. So that does not mean that only men abuse women. Women also abuse men. Now, whichever the case doesn't also make it right. Now, with the increase of death rate due to domestic violence and many that are still suffering in it, it should be a note of caution for those who are not married and are listening to me right now. So you want to, first of all, verify the kind of partner you're living with. There are many signs when you are courting that could tell if the person is going to be abusive. For instance, you are courting someone and then they call you names, or they put you down, or they don't have respect for you. All those are signs that it's going to get worse when you get married. However, that does not mean that you would be able to see all the signs. Most of the time, some people practice what they call love is blind. But like my father would always say, marriage is the eye opener, and I hope you don't regret it. So if you know someone who's in an abusive relationship, Don't just tell them to pray. Now, don't get me wrong, prayer is good. Prayer can solve a lot of life's issue. Now, when you pray, means you're talking to God about a situation, right? But when someone is in an abusive relationship, I am one of those persons who believe that you need to move out of that environment for you to be able to really pray, because there have been situations when the partner is praying and the abusive partner still keeps abusing them. So you don't want to die on your knees. So you need to be able to know where you are praying. So if you are one who is counseling someone who is suffering from an abusive relationship, don't just tell them to pray. It's heartbreaking. Beside that, they're going to believe that prayer don't work, especially when the partner they are praying for is not changing. Now, if you are going to advise someone to pray, at least tell them to call the abusive partner so they can pray. That's the truth. If you're going to be counseling somebody who's been in an abusive relationship, counsel the partner. Now, we live in a society where when a marriage have issues, it is the woman who goes out looking for the solution to solve the issue. Now, that's very wrong. Both parties should put equal energy to solve the marital problems, not just the woman. Now, when each party puts equal effort to solving the problem, now it makes both of you solve the issue better. I don't subscribe to a woman looking for a counselor and speaking on the behalf of her husband. Now, if you are also a counselor and a husband comes to report their wife, tell them to go get their wife so you can be able to hear from the both sides and settle the matter. Don't just encourage any woman to pray. And don't encourage them to fast and pray in their houses. They are going to die before they finish praying. Also, don't make it seem like they are the child of the devil or an unbeliever when someone reports to you what their husband is doing. Meaning, don't be judgmental. Don't be quick to find fault like, what did you do right? What did you do wrong? You could have done this better. You could have done... It's already very traumatic to have a spouse who is abusing them, who is making them go through tough time. As much as possible, be understanding. Put yourself in their shoes. Now, I believe that counselors who have been abused in some form better understand when they are talking to other people who have been abused. If you've never been abused, does that mean that you cannot counsel someone who's been abused? By all means, you can. But you need to do that with the mind of Christ, so you understand what that person is going through and not just speaking from a head knowledge or assuming something. So you want to show that you understand. Unfortunately, we live in a society that grossly lack empathy. We don't know how to put ourselves in other people's shoes and try to find out what they are going through. We just want to judge based on what we see. We don't want the in-depth. I thank you very much. My friend is joining me and then she's giving her comment. She's also a great counselor. I can tell you that because she and I have at some point in time worked together. And she says, I think that pray and submit counsel is a default response when a counselor runs out of ideas. And I also absolutely believe that too. Now, when you see a person who is in an abusive relationship, the tendency is that they're already suffering from low self-esteem. Now, imagine if you are going to be counseling that kind of person, what damage you will be doing if you are being judgmental or if you are finding fault with that person. The person already thinks that they are not good. Now, most of the time, 80% of women take the blame when a marriage is not working. That's what most women do. Now, come to think of it, if a woman feels that she could do better for her marriage to work, then she comes to you for counseling and you're finding fault what she could have done right, what she could have done well, how she could have given the husband better sex, good food, meal for the mother-in-law and stuff. You're just damaging that woman. You want to first of all listen. including if she is truly at fault. Because the truth is that some people behave the way they do based on their level of knowledge, based on their level of reasoning. And if you were to be in the same situation, you will not behave differently. And if you're going to give somebody counsel, be sure you're doing that by the leading of the Holy Spirit and not just because you're speaking. So, two reasons now why people stay in abusive relationship. One, because they think the partner will change. Also, they think that they think because of low self-esteem, they think the partner will change. I will tell you several women who have been in relationship and they think my husband will change, he will change, and he keeps beating her, he keeps maltreating her, and then she thinks it's going to change. Then at the end of the day, 2 years, 3 years is not changing, and then they begin to regret that. Now, is it bad for someone, a woman, to believe that her husband will change? It's not bad. In fact, it's according to scriptures, because Apostle Paul says, make allowances for each other's weaknesses, each other's fault. But when you are in a relationship where you have given him the first opportunity to change, the second, the third, and he's still making you his punching bag, I think common sense should tell you that you are not the one who needs help, but he needs help. Now, that's another point here I must emphasize. Now, counselors who speak to only one party, you're not helping the relationship. If you are going to effectively counsel a marriage, you need to speak to the both parties. And do you even know that in an abusive situation, the person who needs help the most is not the person who has been abused, is the abuser himself. That person who is abusing the other person, who thinks that he or she is right for being abused, or he or she can better pass their point or pass their explanation by abusing the other person. So if a woman or a man comes to report to you that their husband or wife is abusing them, don't counsel that abused person already. Don't do that. Know that it means that the other partner needs help. It's abnormal for any human being to say, I love you, and you have sex with that person, you have fun with that person, and you can still raise up your hand to hit that person or do something evil to them. That itself is evil. Now, another reason people remain in abusive relationship is family members. Now, that we cannot overemphasize. Some families go as far as saying, well, in my family, there's no divorcee, there's no separation. That's good, but people are different. If in your family, they've never been separation or divorce, I am someone who, because God hates divorce, I also hate divorce. But I also believe that God will not permit anybody to stay in a relationship that is a threat to their lives. I strongly believe that, because he also wants us to be alive to achieve his plans and purposes for our lives. So family members encouraging all people who are in abusive relationship to stay and bear it, I wonder why you're doing that. Do you prefer to take the corpse of your family member than to have the person as a single parent and enjoy their lives? These are things we should think about. That you are patching your marriage does not mean another person would not. There be cases where women commit suicide because nobody is listening to them. And the people who are supposed to be listening to them are saying otherwise. Another reason people stay in abusive relationship is religious reason. Now, that again, I think is badly overemphasized. So you have a spouse that does not purely uses common sense, and you pray about it. How does that even happen? The truth is, like I said earlier, prayer is good, but there are some issues that require pure common sense that you do not need to pray about. In the first place, that's why God gave us brains. The reason we have brains, there's intuition, there's the Holy Spirit, is because there are certain things God expects of us, especially concerning our partners, that we should not come to pray again. Imagine a serial cheat. A serial cheat doesn't need to be prayed for. He needs help or she needs help. A woman who verbally abuses her husband needs help. The tendency is that she's been brought up in a home where a verbal abuse is a way to correct or to discipline. That kind of person doesn't need prayer. So, like I said again, if you even must pray for that kind of person, invite them to pray. How interesting will it be when you are praying for your spouse and your spouse can hear you praying for them about a bad attitude? It may be embarrassing when you are praying it in prayer, when you're saying it in prayer, but it's going to send home the point. Another reason people stay in abusive relationship is, what will people say? People who have seen me married for 2, 3 years, 10 years, all of a sudden they're going to see me as a single parent. Now, if you are in that kind of situation and thinking, well, if I could get help, what would people say? You also have to consider, what's your mental health? The truth is, if you have been enduring abuse, any form of abuse, your mental health will be affected. You will not be able to reason the way you would reason. Your productivity concerning life generally will drop. So it's not, you could cover it up, and we don't know, your church people don't know, you're looking fine every Sunday, wearing nice clothes, your neighbors are seeing you smiling. Nobody is going to know. But you know what? It's going to affect your health and your output eventually. So quit thinking about what will people say. If you need help, go get professional help. Now, I use the word professional help because there are some people who would also pray and they'll be professional. Professional doesn't mean someone who would just tell you pray and that's it. You may not have the opportunity to come next time to go and talk about the issue. Now, the last reason, when I say the last reason, I don't mean that's all the reasons. Another reason people stay in abusive relationship is security. Now, this is common with women who believe that, well, they can't leave a man who beats them because they may not be able to fend for themselves, rent a house, pay the children's school fees, and feed. In the first place, if you are unmarried and you're listening to me, get a job. I mean, as a woman, get a job, earn some money, live your life before a man comes in. Now, if you don't learn how to do that before you get married, you will find out that you are living by the mercies of a man. Now, if you marry a good man, bravo, you will enjoy it, and then he can shower on you all the security you need, whether financial or physical. If you now ends up marrying an abusive man, you are not going to get any security, and you are going to be scared leaving that abusive relationship because you know that you will not be able to fend for yourself. You can pay house rent. Many women are hanging in there with the men beating them and doing all sort of evil on them because they cannot fend for themselves. It's not just about paying the children's school fees. They know if they call for a separation, they can't even feed themselves. If you are that kind of woman and you are in an abusive home, the first thing you want to do is get yourself a job. Get something doing. And if you're single, you're listening to me, get something doing. Don't just rely on the peanuts and thinking that life is going to be beautiful because you are going to get married. You are first who you are before you get married. Marriage, you must know today, is a byproduct of all the things that God has called us to do on earth. What does that mean? It means that with or without a husband and a wife, God first gave you a purpose to achieve on planet earth. So quit thinking that until you get married to a certain person, you cannot fulfill purpose in life. That's not true. I hope you also remember that when you get to heaven, there's not going to be any marriage. It ends here on planet Earth. The more reason you must make a right choice and enjoy your marriage. But beyond that, you must be conscious of your purpose in life. That purpose in life is connected to your marriage, meaning that if you marry wrong, it can affect your purpose. If you marry right, it can affect your purpose. However, you do not need to be married to be who God wants you to be. Now, that's the most beautiful thing I like about God. You do not need to be married before you fulfill that purpose in life. Wherever you are in life, I want you to know that God thinks good about you. He has good plans for you. Never let anyone put you down or make you feel less of yourself. I have had fun today talking with you. Till I come your way again next time, remember, there is no excuse for staying in abusive relationship. God bless you.